Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Hello, I'm Victor Huynh, your host for Raw Spotlight, a community podcast where we feature leaders from B2B businesses, community partners, and the public sector, including transportation, waste management, and environmental sustainability. Join us as our guests share their innovative strategies and inspiring success stories. Past guests include Jackie Dilfer from BFC Funding and Dylan Feek from the city manager of my hometown, city of Monrovia. And today's episode is brought to you by Ready Artwork, your trusted partner in B2B digital marketing and public digital outreach. We craft tailored strategies to help your organization grow and thrive long-term. At Ready Artwork, we combine data-driven insights with creative design to boost your online success. Our experts specialize in SEO, digital advertising, web development, and email marketing, helping you unlock new opportunities in the digital world. To learn more, visit readyartwork.com. Welcome to today's episodes. We are honored to have Melissa Holguin with us, a highly respected leader in transportation, environmental planning, and equity-driven community engagement. Melissa has built an impressive career over the past 18 plus years, specializing in mega project management, stakeholder engagement, and strategic planning. Currently serving as project director, she leads some of the most significant infrastructure initiatives in the Los Angeles region, ensuring that large-scale transportation projects are not only efficient, but also equitable and inclusive. With a deep commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, JEDI initiatives, Melissa has been at the forefront of community-focused transportation planning, making sure historically underrepresented voices are heard. She has played a critical role in projects such as the Long Beach East LA Corridor Mobility Investment Plan, the NextGen Bus Plan, and the California High-Speed Rail Project, helping to secure funding and drive innovative solutions that improve mobility for all. A fluent Spanish speaker, Melissa is passionate about breaking barriers in transportation and public engagement, ensuring that diverse communities have a seat at the table. She also serves on the Women's Transportation Seminar, WTS-LA Board, advocating for diversity and inclusion in the industry. Today, we'll explore her journey, the complexities of large-scale project management, and the future of equitable transportation planning. Get ready for an insightful conversation with Melissa Holguin, a leader shaping the future of mobility and infrastructure. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Hi, Victor. Thank you so much. Thank you for that nice introduction.
Yeah. So we'll jump right into it. And maybe we can start with background and career, right? So can you share a bit about your career journey and what inspired you to enter the world of transportation and infrastructure planning?
Yeah. So I just want to say I'm excited to be here. And it has been an interesting journey for me. I think that I'll be honest and say that I didn't necessarily think about this path from the beginning. I kind of fell into it. And so I started prior to my company with Arellano Associates. I was at a company that did different type of work, but this more on the labor compliance business side, but it was a similar type of clients and a lot of focus on construction projects. And the way I came into the role that I have today is that Genoveva Arellano was one of our speakers, a keynote speaker for what I used to plan back then at the OCTA Small Business Conference. And so that's really how I ended up one day deciding that I wanted to switch paths. And I was able to, I actually kind of like took a little bit of a break, went and spent a summer with the family. And then when I came back, I started to pursue, a new path and a new company. And literally, I feel like, it was really heaven sent because everything lined up perfectly. I interviewed on a Friday with Genoveva and Chester, and I was hired on Monday, and here we are 18 years later. So that has been, I'll just say that at Arellano Associates has really been where I saw and was inspired by the leadership at our company to make a difference. And I think that's why I have really stayed in what I'm doing today, because at all levels, people were affected, we're changing lives. And so that was very exciting to me to be able to have a role in some small way to impact people's lives for the better.
Wow. So you actually heard her speak as a keynote and got inspired enough to want to jump ship. That's
Yes,
amazing.
absolutely. Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah. Um, okay, so you've worked on several mega projects, and then when we say mega, I mean they're huge, right? Throughout your career, what has been one of the most challenging yet rewarding projects you've led, and why?
Yes, so kind of aligning with what I just shared, I'll have to say one of the most rewarding today, been many, but the Metro NextGen Bus Plan was very exciting. Again, just one of those quick starts. I think we got the contract like the day we were walking in to do the kickoff meeting. It was that quick of a turnaround. And I remember saying in the proposal interview, as we do with our clients, we're ready to hit the ground running. And it was within 48 hours that the PM called and said, okay, did you really mean that? Because here we go. And so it was about it was about improving bus network service, right? And so Metro hadn't done this for 25 years, and it was countywide. Every kind of different level of challenge that you can imagine with doing that kind of engagement, 10 million plus people in the county. And obviously, we can't speak to every single person, but really having the leadership on the Metro side from the operations to the community engagement, to the planning work, all work together to align with the stakeholders and really get meaningful feedback. So we used a lot of our community-based organizations to team up, and we had meetings. Also, I think one of the things that I was really proud of was being able to have meetings on location at ADA facilities, so homes that were converted, people that depend on bus service to get to their doctor's appointments, to get to school, to visit family. So this wasn't an option. This was definitely their way of life. And so it was very exciting to, I think, be able to see the impact that we can make when we partner up and when you have the leadership supporting this. And the other challenge with this, which was huge, was that towards the end of the project was when COVID hit. And so you can imagine doing all of this work and having to automatically switch, right? And to still try to make it meaningful. It was a time during COVID where it was the peak worst of it. And we literally had a series of meetings scheduled where we were heading towards the venue, and the venue called us and said, don't bother showing up, we're shutting down.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, that's how real it was, right? And so being able to overcome all of those challenges and to still successfully meet the needs of the people, take in their feedback, extensive outreach that was done. And we're still working on the next part of that, which is the bus speed and reliability improvements project, which is the actual implementation of a lot of these dedicated bus lanes and improvements that were made out of the feedback that was heard during the next gen process. So that's definitely a special one to my heart. I think we made some new connections, got to meet people that I would have never met before, and just really challenged to make sure that while we didn't talk to every single person, they were at least represented to some degree by the connections that we made and the partnerships that we worked with.
Awesome. Yeah, it's usually those challenging moments that make it really memorable. I mean, it sucks in the moment, but
Mhm.
when you look back on it, it's like, wow, we actually, overcame that.
Right. Yes. It seems like so long ago, but
Mm,
I still remember the date clearly.
yeah. So, let's switch gears a little bit. I know you already mentioned equity and inclusion when it comes to transportation, right? And I know you're a strong advocate for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, JEDI, in transportation. So how do you ensure these principles are integrated into large-scale infrastructure projects? I mean, maybe first give us an overview, and then why it's important, and how do you do that?
Sure, yeah. So I'll have to start by saying that, as an outreach engagement consultant, it really is in the fabric of what we do as part of our work every day. If you ask somebody what is equity, what is diversity, you ask 10 different people, you're probably going to get 10 different answers. And so I think that really shows that we have to continue to evolve and grow what it means in order to meet the needs. It's not the same, that it was. I mean, even during COVID, to coming, lessons learned from COVID, challenges that we faced. And so it's going to always continue to evolve. We cannot stay stagnant and think that because one strategy worked in the past, it's always going to work. I think our stakeholders, our communities really are becoming much more informed and understand how to represent themselves. So while it is ingrained in everything we do, it also has to be intentional. And so we always look to how can we make this process better, and how can we also manage expectations so that the client, is meeting their goals at the same time that the communities are happy with the process. And a lot of when you think about equity and diversity and access, it has to do really with having an influence over the decision-making process. I think that's what most people that are involved, they're giving of their time, right? You're asking them to come to a meeting, you're asking them to give you feedback on a survey, and they need to understand the why. And what is that going to matter? And so ultimately, they want to see that their feedback was considered and influenced the decision-making process. And again, I don't even think that it's like, not everybody you're going to get, consensus 100% to be approving something and be all, bought in. But I think as long as they have a seat at the table that is meaningful, and that they see that their feedback mattered, and that it will continue to evolve and influence the process, and that the clients are looking for that feedback, I think that's where we can say that could be considered successful. Mm-hmm. You can balance that with making sure that it's a variety, right? There's not one solution that's best, because our communities are so diverse. And so we have to go in with an open mind, and we'll have a plan and a strategy and be proactive, but also be flexible and to receive the, feedback where something might work better. I don't live in your community necessarily, so I need your input to tell me how this is going to be received. So I think all of those things have helped us as a firm at Arellano to really contribute to the industry. I think that our JEDI group, that as we call it, is on the forefront of always maintaining what is ahead of us with our client expectations, what are the challenges that they're facing, and how do we collaborate and marry the two to be able to bring forward a successful communications program.
Awesome. And, we talked about, communities, marginalized communities. What are some of the biggest barriers that they face when it comes to public transportation, and how can agencies better address them?
Yeah, so I think some of the barriers to begin with are just awareness and education, understanding what it is we're asking. Like I said earlier, I think that there are a lot of improvements in terms of people understanding what is transportation, how can my opinion matter. The other thing I think is really challenging, and I think it will continue to be in the coming years, is just time, right? Being oversaturated with all of the different information that we're asking for them to be informed about, coming to different meetings. I think being really, really mindful of that. And so sometimes we think that technology is the solution, and it can be. but it has to be balanced. It has to be balanced where you use the technology for the audiences that really receive it well, that, we can throw in the younger generation, right? Like they don't know how to work without technology, but we also have to think about all of the others, whether it's age, whether it's fear of being on technology. I think those types of considerations are super important. So, the challenge is going to be getting people to pay attention at the time where we really need their feedback. Sometimes our projects may take a really long time and they seem so far away that we are not going to get the attention from someone unless it's going to impact their life immediately. Because again, we're taking part of their day, right? We're taking their time from something else that they have to do with family. So I think that has been definitely a challenge that we have to work through. And again, giving just the variety of solutions and options has proven to be successful.
Right. Especially marginalized communities, right? Financially, time is really expensive proportionally. Mm-hmm. So trying to figure out exactly what's the best time and educating them why it's important to engage as well. There's like a whole host of stuff we don't normally think about as, if we're not in that community or not at that level of, there's language barriers, so many things to consider.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And I think more and more we are opening the way for, I wouldn't even say necessarily solving those barriers, but I think just to begin with being aware and acknowledging them. Mm-hmm. The community-based organizations have been absolutely critical to those barriers, right? You have a trusted leader that can communicate, again, being representative of their communities, can communicate what works, what doesn't work, right? And then when we are ready to listen, then we can at least alleviate a lot of those barriers.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So for the next section, we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and project management, right? So you yourself as a project director overseeing multimillion-dollar projects, how do you balance the technical, financial, and community aspects, engagement aspects of your work?
Yeah, that's a fully loaded question. Yeah, so just to kind of break it up a little bit, I think looking at like the technical aspects of the work that we do, community engagement in our work is definitely, it's a broad spectrum of what we cover in all phases of the work that we do in the projects, right? And so I think really understanding there's an added expectation for us as, public relations, community engagement to understand some of the technical language. I like to tell people sometimes that we're the middleman interpreters, right? We're talking the technical language. We're trying to understand those requirements. We want to make sure that we align with what the client is trying to meet. We're very supportive of that process. Whether it's like a planning, project, there's a lot of engineering technical terms, transportation terms. So taking that and balancing it with somebody needs to read this at the end of the day and be able to consume it and be able to understand it so that it matters to them. So it's a priority. It's not like we're minimizing any of that. We want to always be able to give information that's going to help the planning process, help the environmental teams that we work with to get good information that they can then use to come out with the results that they're looking for. In terms of financial aspects of the work, I think more and more as consultants, we realize that our clients are in a place where they themselves are getting stretched, right? They might be understaffed. There might be just challenges within the organization. And so for us, we want to be very mindful of that and how we can come in and support our clients. And so we'll be very mindful of being cost efficient, of maximizing resource. I think with a company like us, with Arellano Associates, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary last year, and we have so many resources. I mean, we've worked on or touched almost every area in the Southern California region. And so we have, master databases, we have demographic information, we have tools that we don't have to necessarily start from scratch, right? We can come in to a project and start with a solid set of resources that can help with those types of efficiencies. So we're always looking to do that. That's kind of our number one question when we kick off a project. What can we bring to the table to start, and then tailor it and refine it as we move forward? And balancing that with the community engagement, I think too, as I mentioned earlier, just being that co-partner, being a good neighbor, thinking of how we come and represent our clients. I said we're like this interpreter, right? We're the middleman, making sure that we're talking with all parts of our teams. So looking at this, like I mentioned about the resources, we're not just checking off a box, right? We really want to make sure that what we're doing makes sense. We don't want to just do a survey just for the sake of saying we did a survey, right? What is going to happen to that data? I always like to look at the back end. What is the back end going to look like for the technical team and the client that's going to be useful for them? And I guess just making sure that whether it's a small project or it's a multi-million-dollar project, whether it's a quick few months project or it's, multi-year project, at the core of that engagement and those plans, there's very similar expectations. There's very similar standards that we want to continue to follow. We want to make sure that everybody feels prioritized and that they can have a meaningful role, whether it's, a simple tool, whether it's a complicated, geo-based map. All of those things have to integrate well together. And at the end of the day, they need to make sense for the communities, especially when we're talking about equity-focused communities or those underserved, marginalized communities, making sure that they understand that whatever project it is, that they're just as important to the process.
Yeah, and that really resonated with me because I remember working with your team on the Metro Micro project, and I think it was Josh at the time. Like,
right,
he did everything. I mean, we went out to an actual event, and he was there driving the car, charging up the batteries, setting up the booth, and we were out there. We're just the design partner on that then, but we went out there, we made sure that things were done properly, right? And so it's operating like that small team, but even though it's a bigger project, to make sure things get done, right? And so that's why, I really, really connected with your team during that project.
Yeah, we really did. I mean, I think we both of our teams had the same type of work ethic. I think the same type of vision.
Yeah.
And, that's what matters. We all kind of jump in, all hands on deck, right? Let's get this done. Let's make sure that we are meeting what the project needs. And that's kind of our role. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, right? But we are this like liaison again in the middle of technical experts, in the middle of our communities leaders and with our clients. And so ultimately, I think what matters is that we look at things from a bigger picture perspective, that we're upfront and communicate information well so that people can make decisions. And at the end of the day, I think ultimately all of our goals in this industry is to just make sure that we make an impact, right? That we're improving lives through mobility, through equity, and making it sustainable for the region. So I think when we all collaborate in that way, it makes sense and it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned, technology, right? So my next question is about innovative solutions, and digital engagement, right? You've led digital engagement efforts for major projects. How have technology and digital tools changed the way communities interact with transportation planning?
I think it's changed for the better,
Hmm.
in the sense that you can create a tool like a map or a video or an infographic that's going to make things much more clear than trying to explain it or someone trying to read it in a really long technical report.
Hmm.
So I think just that aspect of it, we find that images, graphics, all of those things are much more accessible to everyone. They're more easily understood. And so I think looking at how our tools are going to continue to play a role is going to be really critical. I don't think we can have this conversation without talking about AI and how really that's changing our industry. I'm
Yeah.
sure you think about that too.
Hmm.
And so the tools that we use, we actually all share that for our company. We have something that I'm really proud of, and I think is very unique, which is our innovations team. It's not something that's typically found at an engagement company. And so our innovations team is made up of our social media team, our creative team, and our tech team. And they're challenged with on a daily basis looking at what tools are coming up, what changes do we need to make, what tools no longer work, maybe they're not cost effective for a small city project, for example. We just had last week our monthly tech talk, we do a lunch update where we tell all of our staff what are the latest tools that are being shared. And so I think that's a critical part of being successful in the future, is not just staying stagnant, again, learning what's trending, understand how people interact, what they feel comfortable, and being simple at the same time, right? That simplicity is incredibly important. I think one of the things that our tools will be in, um, significant for is, like I mentioned earlier, it's hard to talk to every single person, right? So what we want to do with our tools is, one of the things we look at the very beginning of our projects is a community profile, right? Looking at what are those demographics, what are our targets for the plan. If you can align your demographics for your target area with the types of responses you get, right? So, for example, if you're targeting a particular age, so I want to hear back from people under 18, right? And my LA County demographic says that it's almost 28% of the population is under 18. Can I target that, right? And use my tool and meet that need to say, okay, our demographics aligned with the results that we receive from our data and our tools align with my goals and the demographics in the target area that I'm working with. So things like that I think we can use, and even launching a campaign from day one. If it's not just like launch it and leave it, it's like look at it, right? We always look at things mid campaign. Am I meeting my intended um, results? And if not, then what can I do to push that out? So maybe I need to go to a couple more colleges or high schools and push out this survey because I'm not getting the response that I want from that age group or that gender group or whatever target we're looking at, ethnicity, and what, different ways that we can look at data. So I think just making sure that we're constantly updating and keeping current. It's always changing, it's always evolving. So I think that that's going to be super important. And at the end of the day, I think still balancing it out with the reality of, like, some people will still always want to have pencil and paper, and there might be those little abuelitas
Yeah,
that want to sit and talk and fill out a survey. So I think we always want to remain flexible and be able to incorporate those things as well.
for sure, for sure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about transportation infrastructure, right? What is the future of it? So, what do you see as the future of transportation in Los Angeles and beyond? And what are there any trends or innovations that excite you that, based on what you're seeing?
Mhm. So I think that that's just an interesting time where we're at right now. I think that there's obviously a lot of talk around what we're going to be hosting, right? We have the World Cup and the games coming up, which are all, both mega events. Um, One of the things I think I believe we should be really mindful as we do all of this exciting planning and this next 3 years, what that's going to look like is really going to matter of not just doing it for the Olympic and Paralympic Games or just for the World Cup. And I say just because that's a huge effort,
Yeah.
but also just thinking about it in long-term investments and benefits, right? That we'll hear a lot from our communities that they're going to be incredibly aware of their surroundings and how their local traffic will get impacted, their parking will get impacted. And so if we can use these investments to leave a better footprint for the long run, improve bus service, those first last mile connections, I think that, being centered around equity is going to be key. And I think that it will be more well received. I think it's a great time for collaboration. I really love the idea of making sure that while all of this exciting planning is going on and the improvements are happening, we really want to embrace it, right? Embrace it as a time to be good partners, a time to make sure that we all feel like we've been a part of this. Right. I always think like, whether it's personal or professional, like no one succeeds alone. We all need our core group. And so I think thinking about it in that way, if we can embrace what's about to happen in the next few years, in that way that we become partners, that those communities that will have events or will have, transportation, congestion. I think if they can feel that they are part of this process, I think it's really going to make a difference. And I think we'll be able to be proud. You think back, I was just at a tour last week with the WTS-LA group. We toured the Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really exciting. I think just being there and the presence of it, the history and how it's really been embraced as, a community venue and a place to bring the communities together. I think if we can continue to create those types of investments and those types of infrastructure that will be here to last, I think that will be very exciting for all of us.
Yeah, it's both a big challenge and an opportunity depending on how we approach it, right? There's going to be a lot of money poured into these events and the whole structure of everything. But how do we come out winning at the end of it? Right? When all the dust settled, all these events go to another city, where does that leave us? And how do we take advantage of that? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's really interesting to see. Like I said, it's just an exciting time to be in our industry. I think, maybe we thought of transportation in the past as like, let's just move vehicles. But it really is like such a shift now to just moving people in a way that's sustainable, that's equitable, that's resilient, that we can, collaborate about these different goals and really bring together the technology, the community needs, the infrastructure investment.
Mm-hmm.
That's really going to make a mark for the next generation. I think that's going to be incredibly important.
Yeah. So speaking of next generations, what advice would you give to young professionals, especially women and minorities looking to build a career in transportation and infrastructure planning?
So I think I'll go back to the beginning where I started. I didn't have this perfectly calculated plan to be in this industry. I feel, in my role as staff director, I get the opportunity to be able to meet a lot of the people that we hire. And most times people don't necessarily think of this as a career.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if you're interested there's so much opportunity. So I would say be willing to um, throw yourself out there, right? Ask the questions. I'll do a shout out again. I mentioned earlier on WTS-LA, I think get involved with an organization because that's the people that are going to be the mentors that are going to help you figure out which path you want to take. So sometimes it's just being willing to put yourself out there, take a chance and be brave enough to ask questions and maybe challenge people in a good way of ideas that you may have and be okay when sometimes when it doesn't work out, right? If this is not the path for you, then be willing to try something else. So I think there's just, like I said, there's just so much opportunity. If you really want it, it's yours to have. I think you just have to keep trying to keep putting yourself out there, making those connections. Volunteering is always a great thing to do because it's a low risk, a great experience. You put yourself out there, you get to volunteer, you learn something new that you may not have realized is part of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be what I think I would say to the next generation.
Awesome. So I know that you're going to be taking on a role as the chair of the Small Business Equity, right? Group
Yes.
at WTS. Maybe you can give us a little bit insight about WTS and then your new role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so WTS-LA, it's Women in Transportation. And I think a lot of what it's exactly what I just mentioned, really trying to be that mentor. There's a lot of different committees, so there's a lot of events every single month. There's different opportunities to get involved. My role is to lead the Small Business Committee, so I'm the chair for that this year. And I'll be hosting a event October 22nd. We're going to be hosting an event where we're really trying to bring to the table small businesses and talk about upcoming opportunities. We'll have 5 different agencies present, plus a lot of primes. So we'll be putting them together, talking really about what the agency's needs are, what the upcoming potential opportunities could be. And then it'll be an opportunity to meet with all of the primes one-on-one and talks about that as well. I think a lot of what is going to be involved is also just helping small businesses meet the need in a sustainable way, right? How can we make contracting a better process, the proposal process, all those things that can be those barriers.
Right.
That's going to be a lot of what we're focused on, improving that access for small businesses. But yeah, I think in terms of the organization itself, we're always looking for people to join. So definitely would welcome any who are interested to reach out. I'd be happy to sit with you and just talk about the organization a little more. I think you can do as much or as little as you are available to do. We realize that most people are pretty busy. So I'm part of the LA chapter, but there's, chapters, hundreds of chapters all over the country that, provide professional development. We provide networking. Right now, we're in the middle of scholarship fundraising for our gala in November. So there will be awards to all levels of schooling for scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of advocacy behind this for, women, for making sure that others are included and promoted within the transportation industry.
Awesome. I'm going to connect Emily.
Yeah, we would love to have Emily, please.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. Now, were there any things that you kind of want to share about maybe some current events or some of the challenges that are near and dear to you in terms of the community?
Yeah, so I think that what I mentioned earlier, I think that making this information as simple as possible. I'll just share a quick personal story, with my own family. Sometimes if you're not in an area where it's easily accessible to public transportation, it's really hard to kind of wrap your head. And I think there's a lot of fear around that. Like, how am I going to get on the train to go to LA and all these great destinations? So this was back when it was the Gold Line, and it ended at Atlantic, and there wasn't even a parking structure yet at that time. And so I have a big Mexican family that anytime I plan anything, it's going to be like minimum 30, 50 people. So I dared myself to go ahead and plan a day where we could go and have a train ride and take my family to, these fun destinations that you have access to. And so we went and we parked at the Pep Boys, which was the temporary parking because the structure wasn't there yet. And I no joke, it was about 25 of us. So we all got on the train, and it was like they were all so afraid. They had no idea how to even take transportation. So I was like trying to like get everybody their tickets, and we ended up getting on the train. We went to Alvera Street. I had my grandparents, my aunts, the little kids, all of us, and they loved it. To this day, they just thought it was the funnest thing they've ever done. So I think just being able to like show people that are not necessarily familiar with the system or afraid of it or just don't know how to ride. I think being able to just make it a fun experience that changes people's perspectives, and they're more comfortable with being able to, use public transportation. When you travel, it's like, that's so normal, right? Outside of the United States and other parts of the world, it's so normal. Like my grandma, she, was born and raised in Mexico City, so she would get on the bus system all the time, no hesitation. But here, it's been a very different experience for her. So I've been trying to just pass that on to say that we can do it here in California as well.
Yeah, I just came back from Asia, and I mean, public transportation in combination with ride hailing, it's part of everyday life. You don't really even need to own a car out there.
Exactly. I know, that is what's incredible. Yeah, I was in Europe this past May, and I thought the same thing. We had my 17-year-old son with us, and he learned the train lines. We were there was a trolley. He did the the electric scooter all on his own. That's what I would love to be able to have here for us in Southern California.
Okay, so I have one last question, but before I ask it, I want to point people to your website, arianoassociates.com.
Yes.
Okay. And so the last question is, are there any upcoming projects or initiatives you're particularly excited about?
Well, we're still working. Been working on the Metro Long Beach East-LA Corridor Mobility Improvement Plan. So that's definitely a long-term project that I'm excited to continue to work on. We have been on that for the last 3+ years, and then it'll evolve into the next phase that will be more of plans and program and project implementation. And of course, I think everybody would answer the Olympics in some form or fashion, right? I think that we all, again, want to be a part of that. So whatever small or big role we can contribute to work on that, that's definitely a target for us to continue to be a part of.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. We've been talking to Melissa Holguin, Senior Project Director at Ariano Associates. She's instrumental in our Southern California public transportation community, ensuring that everyone is represented. Melissa, where can people learn more about you personally? Are you active on LinkedIn or any other platforms?
Yes, definitely. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to find me. Also through my WTS-LA profile, you can find me at small business at WTS-LA.org.
Okay. I'll make sure those links are included. Thank you so much for today. It was a great to talk to you.
Yes, likewise, Victor. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was very exciting, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.